Version 4.4 is here, folks, and that means one thing. The updates will continue, and we will continuously keep marching on until the heat death of the universe embraces us with cold, dead arms, and we finally perish from this mortal coil. Also, it means that Starward mode is gonna keep getting updates. I don't know why I started the video with that. Alright, so today is going to be a relatively simple video. We're not going to have a lot of editing for this one. I've got some pretty cool stuff in the works, but for today, I really did just want to play some clips of me playing through Starward mode in the background while I talk about our experience with it after a full update. We have gotten to experience Starward mode for MOC, Pure Fiction, and Apocalyptic Shadow finally, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to share how hard I thought it was, how hard I think it'll be going into the future, and yeah, if I've just enjoyed the addition to Star Rail. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, become a YouTube member down below, and with that said, let's get into it. So, looking at my list here, we are going to start with MOC, which is the most recent Starward version to come out. In the MOC version, we saw Flame Reaver, Graphia, and Sparksea, with Sparksea being the Starward mode boss. Now, this is a diabolical ass lineup. Flame Reaver, Graphia, and Sparksea is 3 double HP bar bosses. And Sparksea is a boss that can really only be sufficiently defeated with 2 archetypes. Maybe 3, I'm actually not too sure about Acheron right now. I'm not sure if she does good into that, but right now it's really just like Break does well on Firefly, and then Elation teams do well, and that's about it from what I've seen. So Sparksea's already a kind of a pain. Flame Reaver with HP inflation is just a brutal, and it is a boss that does take a little bit to actually get through. And then the newest boss, Graphia, oh my god, I got hit with a train, bro. They ran me for my foams. I can't believe this. I'm having a good time today. Alright. So let's actually dissect the difficulty of this a little bit. So on screen now, you're going to see part of my runs for this update. Honestly, I thought that out of the initial batch of Starward mode, I honestly did think MOC was probably the hardest for the average player. So let's break this down a little bit. Flame Reaver is maybe not the hardest boss. You know, you can beat them with Anexa. You can use Herda, Casterus, and Evernight work great. You can still use a Galaya. You know, a lot of AoE characters tend to do very well into Flame Reaver, and we do have quite a few good options for that nowadays. So Flame Reaver, not the worst fight. They just have a lot of HP at this point, and the fight can really take a while, even with those optimal teams. So Flame Reaver is just a bit of a time check at that point. But I don't think that's the worst boss fight. Graphia, I'm not gonna lie, that mechanic of having to use up your skill points to try and not get hit with an uncleansable status, that is unbelievable, dog. I really hate that, man. I have said in the past, I really do not enjoy Graphia's mechanics, and honestly, it could have been worse. I do understand that it could have been a lot worse, but man, that is really annoying, especially if you are a team that is reliant upon skill points. Then you are going to get thrown off so badly, your rotations are kind of just cooked. And it's also the fact that they keep putting uncleansable debuffs into Star Rail. That is really annoying. I really don't like that. And I know it's partially because, you know, Silverwolf exists. That's still really fucked up. Like, that's really annoying. Graphia as a boss, I'm not gonna lie, I've not really had the full Graphia experience, and it is 100% because I use Firefly on her. So, honestly, I just don't really have to engage with the mechanics at all. I cop one hit of the train, and then I just kill her. So, yeah, Graphia could be a lot worse than what I'm thinking, and even then, I already don't like her. It is a boss that I feel like there's at least a few decent characters you can use, and it won't be the worst thing in the world. She does have the ability to summon minions, which is honestly a little annoying depending on who you're going to run, because you could use like an archer on her, but then you're going to have to deal with the 2 mobs. So unless you kill her to get rid of them, then that's going to suck for you. Acheron and Ashvale, actually, both of them, they can both end up working pretty well because they both can target the weakness and, of course, just both very strong characters. And the last one is, honestly, Elation isn't that good into Graphia. I'd like to say it's not that it's bad. I want to very much make this clear. It's not that it's bad, but I also don't think it's amazing. And also, you are going to be losing damage because of the weaknesses that Graphia has. Neither of the Elation main DPSs we have right now actually line up with Graphia's weaknesses, so you're kind of just going to have to live with that. Overall, don't love Graphia, and that's really the most positive thing I can say. I don't know about the general perception of her right now. I'm very curious to hear about it in the comments and all that, but definitely not my favorite boss. But when you have things like Judge of Oblivion and Pollux, it's really hard to be the worst. Oh, and Mecha Pom Pom, how could I forget? The last fight is Sparksy. Once again, I've already kind of touched on it. There isn't much more to say besides you really don't have too many options to deal with this boss. The boss is really annoying, and getting locked into the subfield is really not good, especially if you cannot actually defeat the enemies in there very efficiently. Luckily, we have Archer, and Archer is about to get a massive buff in the form of Rin. So if you are somebody who really just hates this boss, Rin might be a very worthwhile investment for your Archer team. I would like to say that. This is, as a whole, it's just a bunch of bosses that are time sinks or highly specific, and that is really not that fun to deal with. Is it the worst combination that they could have done? Absolutely not, but that doesn't make it any better per se. This was overall, I think, the hardest one of the Starward variants so far. Again, it's just a lot. It's just some very challenging bosses all in a row. And looking at APOC and Pure Fiction, yeah, they still have hard enemies, but there's one or two in each of those that's kind of just a pushover. Like, kind of just an enemy that you can throw a few things at and it'll just kind of fall over. So, just because of that, I feel like there's a little bit of grace there to actually make those more doable, in my opinion. And that is going to take us to what I think was the next most annoying. It is going to be Apocalyptic Shadow Starward mode. So, for Apocalyptic Shadow, there was the Igor Memosprite, Judge of Oblivion, there was Cocolia, and there was Flame Reaver once again, with Flame Reaver being the Starward enemy. I'm going to show the Cocolia clear on screen real quick. I actually got an even better clear than this. Cocolia is such a pushover, man. I know I'm using Firefly. I know I have a very invested Firefly team. I know that's not relatable. But dude, the amount of times I just see Cocolia getting absolutely destroyed whenever she appears in APOC is actually unbelievable. I was seeing DOT clear this efficiently. I was seeing Archer clear this efficiently. And Nexa clearing this efficiently. All break characters clearing this efficiently. Like, Cocolia is just one of those characters who, whenever she appears in one of these modes, it's kind of just free eats, if we're being honest. Like, you look at her and go, yeah, it's free real estate, I'm gonna destroy you. And I feel like that's what the universal experience has been for a lot of players whenever Cocolia appears. Really not that much of a challenge, and I do appreciate that when we also have Igor Memosprite, Judge of Oblivion. I really hate the Judge of Oblivion. I think that their APOC fight is not as bad as the normal variant, actually. Yes, it is a lot of AoE. You need a lot of AoE, and then it also needs to do single target damage, because eventually those mobs stop spawning, and then you need to actually be able to deal a massive amount of damage to the Judge of Oblivion. I understand that. It's just gonna take you a while, and you do need specific characters for it. Like, I have Evanescia, and Evanescia does really good into this fight. And one of my clears, I actually did it with Sunday instead of EMC, so I could use RMC somewhere. That went incredibly well, actually. I actually got a 3771 with Sunday, Evanescia, Yao Guang, Ho. I was honestly pretty happy with that. It went fairly well. The Igor Memosprite is really just always going to be a character or an enemy that if you do not have the correct characters at your disposal, you're not going to have fun. You're just going to have a miserable time regardless. You need like a Finon on your account. You need an Anexa on your account. You need an Evanescia. on your account, you need a Silver Wolf on your account. You need one of those characters to actually deal with him efficiently. It is really not that fun. It's just a nothing fight. It's not enjoyable in any way, but you get through it. You get to deal with Cocolia then, and that's so much easier in comparison. The last fight is Flame Reaver, and I'm going to show Flame Reaver footage from the first time he was ever in APOC. I'm not going to lie, the HP inflation on Flame Reaver and APOC is a little unfortunate because it makes things like doing Infinite Turn Aglaya harder, and that really, really sucks because that was one of the most fun fights, I think, for me, was getting to always get those extra turns on her. It is still possible nowadays, but it is definitely a lot harder, and that does really suck. With that in mind, this is still not the absolute hardest fight. You do actually have a few options for it. There are just some options that you would conventionally want to use on Flame Reaver normally that really do not work here. So, Evernight main DPS, Castris, those are not great options to use here. You get absolutely no value out of the extra turns in most cases, and that is really, really bad, because that means you're ignoring an entire section of the fight mechanics, and you are losing a lot of that value that would be extremely necessary to clear that fight even remotely efficiently. So, Flame Reaver in the current APOC, yeah, you really do need some sort of specific character that will be able to decimate the clones so that you can constantly get those extra skills. But at the same time, you need to still have a character that can progressively make their way to breaking him. It's honestly just kind of a rough sell. Is it the worst fight in the game? No. Having those extra turns at all is unbelievably valuable, and you can save so much action value by playing it right. By playing with, you know, DOT constantly getting Hycelin's attacks, constantly getting Kafka attacks, you know, anything like that. It is still, I think, conceptually a good fight, but they've turned up the HP so much that it definitely makes it a lot harder. But comparing it to MOC, which is just a bunch of it's just a bunch of losers all sitting together, yeah, you know what? I don't think APOC is nearly as bad. I do also think that, I haven't talked about it at all, but the requirements to get the Starward rewards compared to, you know, the normal rewards. So for APOC, you need an average of like 3,400 on each one. Not the worst thing in the world, but definitely not the best. And then MOC, you need to clear in over 33 cycles, or 33 cycles exactly, which is an average of 4 cycles per. I honestly think that the scoring system for APOC is, I think it's okay. I think MOC, I think a lot of people are going to be able to scrape through that on MOC as well, but I think MOC is going to have the potential to be way harsher, because if you lack a specific archetype in MOC, you are usually getting fucked with like 8 cycles or something like that from, you know, what I see from the general public. And then Pure Fiction, yeah, well, let's move on to that. Pure Fiction is just the easiest mode in Honkai Star Rail. I don't know what to say. Yes, if you do not have AoE characters, it is hard. I am well aware of that. But honestly, if you just have those few characters that you can throw at it, Pure Fiction is really not that challenging in any way, shape, or form. And this is the Starward mode that actually had, in my opinion, the easiest lineup. You had Kafka, Cocolia, and Lygus. Lygus, that's the hardest one there, and you know what? Lygus is really annoying. But then you have Cocolia and Kafka. They don't even have their, like, really unique signature mechanics in Pure Fiction. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they kind of just sit there and die. It's really not that impressive. Pure Fiction is just such a boring mode. I don't know what else to say, man. I think that they honestly could do a different set of bosses for Pure Fiction, and maybe that would make it more challenging, more entertaining, but overall, it really is just entirely dependent on if you have some good characters to deal with the mode at large. Like, if you have a really, really strong hunt character, like an invested archer team, to just fucking one-shot bosses, basically, like to just rip apart the elite in the middle, or to just really destroy the mobs on the sides, then yeah, you can still make it through this mode relatively easily. There just wasn't a lot of challenge with any of these. I wish I had more to say, I really do, but there isn't that much going on in Pure Fiction as a game mode. It is definitely the most cookie-cutter experience, and there isn't really much room, I think, for diversity, or not skill expression, because skill expression can definitely still exist within Pure Fiction. Shout out the people who are doing Sela runs constantly in there, you know what, good on you. But yeah, I think this was definitely the easiest Starward mode to clear, and the barrier to hit to get the max value was honestly pretty generous from what I remember. I actually don't remember this one off the top of my head. I will flash it on screen right now if I can. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really just not that impressed by it in any way, shape, or form. I think the other two were far more challenging, and I think the other two were, honestly, I'm not going to say better balanced, but I just think they were a bit more entertaining as well. So, yeah. Again, Pure Fiction. What are you going to do, right? So that's all the modes talked about, and now I can kind of focus on Starward mode as a whole right now. I think that the first time we are getting to experience it, this first initial update, was overall not that bad. If I'm being entirely honest, I really don't think it was awful. I think Pure Fiction was very easy. I've already said that. MOC was pretty damn annoying, I will fully admit, and having two relatively new bosses for the same MOC, definitely a bit of a pain in the ass, I'm not gonna lie. I do think it could have been worse, but that was definitely the hardest one, and I do think that one probably is the one that could have been toned down a little bit. And then there's APOC, which, honestly, I don't think was that bad at all. I kind of wish that Flame Reaver just didn't have so much HP nowadays. That's a pretty unfortunate wish to have, because it's just not going to happen. So APOC, I honestly think it could have been far, far worse. I think the judge was definitely going to be the most annoying for most people, which is pretty fair and understandable. It's just not a very fun boss. As a whole, that experience for APOC, I remember, was honestly pretty fun for most of the people I knew, besides those little things that I've mentioned. The entire experience of Starward mode has actually been quite enjoyable. It has really revitalized endgame, and I feel like it's had a lot of people get a bit more interested in it because there's that more challenge. But at the same time, with that more challenge, you're not losing out on anything if you cannot achieve it, and there is reward for still managing to achieve it. Plus, we actually see some quality of life coming in because of it. If you're doing the Starward mode, you can actually redo specific MOC levels, which is something I have been begging for a very, very long time. It's been probably a year that I've been begging for that. So that same APOC mechanic now exists elsewhere. We've gotten quality of life because of this update, which is super interesting. I am pleased with it, kinda, for right now. I am concerned about the future of it. I wonder how much more difficult they are gonna make it, because they can make all of these substantially more difficult. That is not a question at all. All of these have the ability to be more difficult, especially APOC, because you got away with like a relatively easy Kokoli round. That could end up being like Pollux, and then you're screwed. In the case of a few of these as well, they actually lowered the amount of HP for specific Starward mode variants, or for this round of endgame content. They actually lowered some of the HP. That is not going to be a consistent thing. HP is going to rise back up, and we are going to have to deal with that. So that means that it is a full possibility for all of these modes to get more difficult. And thinking about that, it honestly can go really downhill really quickly, or it can continue to be a relatively reasonable challenge for most players. It's really going to be one of those things where we have to wait and see how Star Rail is going to handle it. If they're going to constantly keep throwing like multiple 4.x bosses all together, or if they're going to start giving us like every once in a while like an easy one, or at least a boss that can be handled by multiple different characters, multiple different teams. If we get something like that every now and then, Not every now and then, but like preferably more often than not, there's at least one of these modes, or all of these modes have at least one kind of more mediocre boss to deal with, then I think this is still going to be a challenge that is actually accessible for the player base at large. And that is not something I expected to say with Starward mode, considering, man, oh my god, fucking Anomaly Arbitration was such a time the first time it came out, and ever since then. A lot of people still really struggle with Anomaly getting those optimal clears, so to see that it feels like this mode is coming out a bit better than it, in my opinion, it's honestly quite shocking, and I'm very happy to say that. It's all just a matter of if it actually keeps up, and that's what we're going to have to wait and see. Again, the newest versions of all these endgame contents are about to come out. We're going to see the next wave of Starward patches, and we're going to be able to see how difficult they are actually going to be, and if I'm going to immediately regret making this video or not. Can't wait to see how badly this ages, you know what? Oh man. Ay, Dios mío. Alright. Well, that is going to wrap me up for today. I think I've said everything I needed to say. This is something I was waiting to do for a while, and I wanted to make it a bit bigger, but again, I have a lot of videos that I'm working on right now, and I have fully kind of accepted that I enjoy the big scripted projects significantly more. Some of the videos that you've been seeing, like how certain DPS have disappeared, or how they never got support, how Abundance disappeared from HSR, how I would buff every Fire 5-star in the game. Those videos are currently where my passion is at, and I'm still trying to make sure that you guys get your 2 videos a week. I'm trying to make sure that you still get that content and that daily dose of Chris, you know what I'm saying? But it's definitely been a little harder even with the editors, like I've had to ask them a lot, so I hope you guys understand that this is just a bit of a more spur-of-the-moment video while I'm cleaning up some stuff, and yeah, that's all I had to say. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I have plenty more good videos coming out soon, and I will see you guys then. Bye-bye!